Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Thursday to December 1st. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The game against Michigan in 359 days. Before we get started with the bulk of today's show, do want to give you a quick update on some news that broke Wednesday evening. Pete Thamel of ESPN reporting that college football officials have been told that the Rose Bowl has officially signed on to an agreement that the college football playoff is going to be able to expand to 12 teams in 2024 and 2025. The Rose Bowl was kind of the last holdout there. Everyone else had sort of agreed that was going to happen. Rose Bowl signed on apparently Wednesday night. So now the college football playoff will expand in 2024 and 2025 to 12 teams. Is that a good thing or not? Well, your mileage may vary on that. But something your mileage probably will not vary on was Ohio State looked pretty solid in basketball on Wednesday night. They were playing at Duke, did not win the game in Cameron Indoor, but they did put together a pretty impressive showing in a game that sort of felt in advance like it might be a pretty big mismatch, and the Buckeyes really hung pretty tough throughout the whole thing. My guest today is Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Tony, I think Chris Holtmann has to walk away from the game. I mean, they lost 81-72, but I think he has to feel okay with how they played.
Tom, there are no moral victories, but this is a moral victory, so there are now moral victories starting right now.
Exclusive breaking, must credit.
But I mean, this is the very definition of a moral victory. And granted, Duke was number 17, Ohio State is number 25. But you go into Cameron, and Ohio State is still a relatively new team. Duke is a relatively new team, but Duke has, when you get a pair of 7-footers in the starting lineup, and Ohio State plays 5 guards at times. Basically, like this is going to be a tough matchup for Ohio State, and to be down 10 at halftime, and then to cut it to 5 points a couple of times in the second half and have some opportunities to get even closer. Yeah, I think everybody walks away feeling like not good. I think they walk away feeling like they let one get away, which is kind of what you want to feel like.
Yeah, and this was the size was kind of the story earlier in the game, where you've got Ice Likely on Kyle Filipowski at one point, and he's given up 7 inches to the guy, and it's like, I don't think that's going to go great over the long haul, but it went okay. And what was really amazing is you look at Ohio State's box score, and I think they finished with 6 points off the bench, but they also didn't get a huge night from anyone. Justice Suing went for 33 against Texas Tech. He finishes with 12. Sean McNeil had 14. Bruce Thornton had 11. Ice Likely 5. Zed Key had a really nice night. I think you probably have to start talking about the game with talking about Zed Key. This is a team where if they're going to be able to hang with teams with big men, if you're going to, when you're playing Purdue, you're going to need Zed Key to be able to, sort of hold his own down in the paint. And based on what you saw against Duke on Wednesday night, it feels like the answer might be answer on that might be, maybe.
As long as he can stay on the court and not pick up 2 fouls early in the game and then go sit, and then Ohio State has no size. And when he was out of the game, like you said, you had Ice Likely. Now they got a couple of good minutes out of Felix Akpara, but that's not necessarily who they're always going to turn to. But when you look at the way Duke had 9 offensive rebounds in the first half. I think they had 18 missed shots and 9 offensive rebounds. And they finished the game with 13 offensive rebounds. So 4 in the second half. This was a huge focal point for Ohio State coming into this game, because Duke had the number 1 offensive rebound percentage in the nation. And so they spent all week working on their defensive rebounding. And not just their defensive rebounding, but resetting their defense after giving up offensive rebounds, because they knew Duke would get those. So I think in the first half of those 9 offensive rebounds, Duke only had like 6 second chance points. So that shows some maturity to me, that you've got this Ohio State team that is a mix of freshmen and graduates, and they were able to do the little things enough to stay in this game.
Yeah, and Duke finishes the game with 34 boards to 31 for Ohio State, and the offensive rebounds were 13-12. So Ohio State really did hold their own on the glass against Purdue or against Duke. There was this like stretch right at the end of the first half where Ohio State had been hanging right in there. It was a very competitive game. And then they had 2 turnovers in the first 11 minutes of the game. They actually had the lead at that point, 20-17. And then they had 8 turnovers in the last 9 minutes of the first half. And then that was part of a 22-9 Duke run to end that first half. And, you go into halftime and it was like, well, they gave it a nice little run to start the first half. And then, the sort of talent took over and the size advantage took over. And that, you should have expected the second half to kind of, okay, and then Duke wins by 23 points. And, hey, it happens. You've seen this happen to lots of teams in Cameron. And then Ohio State came out and they were effective on the glass again. And they had more rebounds than Duke did, with about 2 minutes left of the game. And then there was kind of these sequences where Duke just kind of kept keeping keeping things alive on their end. And just Ohio State couldn't get the ball back to try and cut into the lead. But it was genuinely impressive to me that Ohio State was able to do that much in terms of rebounding, where no one had 10 boards. Zedke with 8, Ice Likely with 7, Justice Suing with 5, Felix Akpar with 4 in just 7 minutes. They're just kind of like cobbling this together, but it feels like this is maybe going to work at least well enough to be an NCAA tournament team, and potentially more than that.
No, I think you're right. And really, this is a team full of cobblers, and they work in the shoe district. Like, it's just a street full of shoe stores and shoe repair shops, because they can all make a little bit out of not much. And they're all, putting leather and laces and all of these things together to figure out, okay, now I am a point guard and I also defend the 5. It's like, how is that a thing? And Justice Suing is, sometimes he's a 4, sometimes he's a 1, sometimes he needs to be the guy in the post scoring. He did that in this one. And they're still looking for stuff from everybody else. I'm always impressed by Bruce Thornton. He had some turnovers in this one, true freshman. But there's also times where you can see, like, he has this feeling that I need to score now. I have an advantage here. I'm going to take advantage of it. And he doesn't back down at all. And he talked about how on Tuesday, he talked about how the trip to Maui, like, really gave him confidence that he could play at this level, because you're playing against 2 ranked teams in Cincinnati. Because the first 3 games, you're just playing against, as he said, no disrespect, but not those teams. And so he learned that he could play at this level. And then you see another good game from him in this one, 5 of 8 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. I think they'd like to get some more assists out of him. But at this point, I thought Duke's defense was also really good. There are very few catch and shoot situations in this game.
Yeah, the Ohio State finishes with just 6 assists on the game. That's not, that's not a number that's going to win you many games. But yeah, to your point, Duke is a very, Duke is a very fundamentally sound team on the defensive end. Stop me if you've heard this for the last 40 years or so, but that was the case again on Wednesday night. What was interesting to me was Ohio State did all of this. They didn't have a huge blow-up game from anyone. Zedke had a very nice night, but you didn't have 33 points out of Justice Suing. He finished with 12. You also didn't get really anything out of Bryce Sensabaugh. He played only 14 minutes, 4 points on 2 of 6 from the field, 1 rebound, fouled out, 3 turnovers. I mean, this was a game where he looked a little like a true freshman, which, surprise, he's a true freshman. These things are going to happen sometimes. You have seen the good game from him. You've seen the good game from Suing. You've seen the good game from Zedke. You're sort of seeing flashes and pieces of things. And, sometimes you have the Justin Ahrens 30-point game and it doesn't end up meaning anything. But it feels like you're seeing it, enough with different guys that this is a team that could end up, as guys sort of build confidence, as Thornton has, as other guys sort of start getting into that, into that mode where they can, okay, we can do this kind of a little more consistently. This feels like it's not going to be easy. Ohio State is going to have to do everything on kind of difficult mode this year, because they don't have the big guy. They don't have, necessarily the lights out 3-point shooter, Sean McNeil, maybe, but not, they don't have John Diebler this year. But you can sort of see the pieces starting to fall into place, it looks like.
Yeah, and Bryce Sensabaugh didn't get too much run in this one, although he only played like 4 minutes short of his normal time. It's just defensively, he was not there. Chris Holtmann has said it's his defensive rebounding that he really needs to work on. You see 1 rebound in 14 minutes. getting lost all over the place defensively in terms of his on-ball defense and off-ball defense. And then, of course, 5 fouls in 14 minutes gives you an idea of the lack of defense there as well. And then he was also forcing some stuff. I think the game was a little bit big for him because I think he's a guy who has been able to score against everybody, averaging like 15 points in 18 minutes of play. So, he comes in and he's automatically like, okay, I'm on. It's time to go. And 2 of 6 from the field wasn't really there for him. And so, he could only play so many minutes. But Sean McNeil, that guy is such an upgrade over Justin Arns because he can put the ball on the court and he can drive and he can pull up. However, I think he took a number of bad shots in this game down the stretch when they're trying to get a 3 and he'd pull up on fast break a couple of times and shoot some quick stuff that isn't really anybody's game. And they could have gotten some better shots, but it was so hard I say they could have gotten some better shots. It was so hard for them to get good 3-point shots that I think he just thought, hey, there's nobody here. Let me shoot it. And there are a couple of passes where, throughout the game, if they were crisper, they could have had some shots, but the passes were a little slow, a little low, and it would cause a shooter to double clutch before he could get an open look. So they're just a little bit off right now. And still, down the stretch, it could have been a couple of turnovers that don't get made, and it's a different game.
Yeah, absolutely. And, McNeil finishes 2 of 7 from 3, and there were some contested looks, but there were also just some open looks from, a little, not quite heat check territory, but close enough that, not the shots you're going to necessarily want to be taking. And, didn't knock down quite enough of those. But yeah, it just, this felt like an encouraging loss to me where I don't think anyone's expecting a national championship out of the basketball team this year. But this feels like a team that is probably in the above 500 Big Ten range, right? I mean, where do you let's just get a little heat check from you, a little temperature check from you. Above 500, at 500, below 500 in the Big Ten, and what seed in the NCAA tournament? If gun to your head right now.
I think they're a difficult team to play. They will have some cold nights. But I think they are above the fold in the Big Ten. I think they're above 500, a few games above 500. Like a 4 or 5 seed. Right now they're ranked 25th. They'll probably drop out after this loss, but I think they're going to obviously get better and better. And they need to get more out of Tanner Holden. They need to see some more out of him. He needs to be a little bit more aggressive and better on defense. Roddy Gale, freshman guard, was showing a little bit at the end of the game, just driving and so there are guys that are still going to grow into their roles, and they're going to be 9 deep and 10 deep at times. And Chris Holtmann has talked about you can't really play 10 guys. That's like just one too many. So they're going to have to get all of these guys to play and then shrink the lineup a little bit and play their best 9. But I see a tournament team. I definitely see a tournament team, and I see a team that is it's odd and versatile, which can be a pain to defend and also score against, but they do need to be better than their 3 of 13 from threes that they were in this one.
Yeah, for sure. And as far as how well will they do in the tournament, this is when you have a weird, sort of a weird makeup team like this, it is even more of it's all about the matchups team. So I will not ask you to Joe Lenardi this and project who they will play as their, 5-ish seed. But yeah, this is an Ohio State basketball team that's like officially at least a little bit intriguing to me. They will be back on the court this Saturday playing St. Francis at home at noon. They've got Rutgers next Thursday at home at 7 p.m. And then Saturday, then a little break for finals before they play North Carolina in New York City on the 17th of December. So that is your official Ohio State basketball update. We will be back to talking a little bit of football tomorrow. The plan is to have Ross Fulton on the show to do a little bit of a breakdown of some of the bigger higher level questions coming out of that Michigan game. So that I don't know if it'll be a fun listen necessarily, but it'll be an informative listen, and really that's all you can ask for. So thank you guys all for joining us. Make sure you check out BuckeyeHuddle.com. Make sure if you are watching on YouTube, you are subscribed to our channel, youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle, and hit that bell, and you get notified whenever we do shows about basketball or football or whatever else we do shows on, which we're getting into a whole bunch of other stuff season pretty soon. So we'll have a bunch of that stuff there as well. So Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.